They gave me ardent threshold. Tuesday. By Thursday I had orders to take her to Karath. I had commanded ships before, patrol frigates, a light escort cruiser, a year on secondment to the border survey fleet. I knew what it felt like to sit in a command chair and feel the vessel move around you. The low vibration of the drives feeding up through the deck plates, the smell of recycled air and hot electronics, the particular quality of silence on a bridge when the crew has settled into watch routine and stopped pretending to look busy. I knew all of that. What I did not know, until Karath, was what it felt like to sit at the center of something the enemy could not imagine. Fissure. Ardent Threshold was a Corsair-class fleet carrier. 411 meters of armored hull, 32 fighter bays, a complement of 960, 2 escorts, the dreadnoughts, Ferris, and Kale's Crossing, each nearly as long, each carrying enough firepower to reduce a mid-sized orbital station to expanding gas in under 4 minutes. We flew in a loose formation, the carrier wide, the dreadnoughts flanking at 2 kilometers, and we ran our emission suppression for the last 60 hours of approach. On passive sensors, we looked like nothing. Maybe debris, maybe an asteroid cluster drifting in from the outer belt. The Sovethian Conclave had been watching this system for 11 years. They had never seen a human capital ship. That distinction matters. The Conclave had intercepted our patrol frigates twice, our survey vessels 3 times, and they had built their doctrine on those encounters. They knew our reaction time. They knew our standard weapon discharge intervals. They knew the electromagnetic signature of our frigate-class drives. They had cataloged all of it, built models, run projections, and arrived at a conclusion. Humanity was a minor frontier species with overextended supply lines and no war-making tradition worth serious study. The briefing summary from Fleet Intelligence used the word manageable. I rate it 4 times. The Sovethian High Priest fleet arrived at Karath 6 weeks before we did. 17 vessels, arranged in a concentric ring formation around the planet's equatorial orbit, with the Thuran predominance. The High Celebrant's flagship, a cathedral of a ship, all spires and radiating hull fins, at the formation's center. Their declared purpose was ritual. The Conclave invoked the right of prior claim when they believed a system contained relics of their founding. Sure. What that right permitted in practice was the interdiction of all non-Sovethian traffic and the formal designation of any resisting power as heretical. The diplomatic word for it was posturing. The operational word was seizure. Had been broadcasting the opening verses of the obliteration rite for 9 hours by the time we dropped out of suppression. I watched it build on the sensor board from the moment my communications officer, Lieutenant Drav, patched the translation feed directly to my station. The Sovethian High Celebrant, whose title translated roughly as the voice of the immutable pattern, was midway through the 3rd cycle of the rite when I gave the order. The rite had a 4th cycle, a 5th, a 6th. It was built to last days. It was built to make the targeted power feel the weight of inevitable doom accumulating over them, verse by verse, until they either submitted or collapsed under the psychological pressure. I let him have cycles 1 through 3. It seemed polite. All ships, I said, stand by to end emission suppression. Full power on my mark. My XO Commander Reyes looked at me from his station. Not nervously, Reyes wasn't nervous in the way that most people are nervous. He just got very still. He nodded once. Mark, the ardent threshold came alive in a way that I will not be able to fully describe to someone who has not been aboard a carrier at full power. It is not loud. The drives are well damped, but it is present. In a way that a suppressed ship is not. The air changes. The lighting shifts from the subdued amber of low emission, running to the full white of operational mode. Every console fills with returns. The fighters in Zipsion cycle their own power-on sequences, and the whole ship hums with it. 32 bays of active ordnance and drive systems announcing themselves to the universe. Ferris. Turked and Kale's Crossing lit up on either side of us. I watched them on the display. 2 dreadnoughts at full operational power, sensor signatures expanding outward like rising suns. I imagined briefly what our formation looked like on the Sovethian board. 3 capital ships materializing from nothing at a range of 40,000 kilometers. The high celebrant's broadcast stopped mid-verse, not at the end of a sentence, not as a natural pause, mid-word. The translation buffer froze an incomplete phrase and then the channel simply went silent. I watched the Sovethian formation on the tactical display and I waited. 17 vessels in a concentric ring. For 4 minutes, not one of them moved. The predominance sat at the center of the formation and did nothing. Its active sensors swept us 3 times, 4 times, 5. Feel the sweeps. Passive reception of their ranging pings, the familiar strobing of their standard sensor suite. Then, on the 6th sweep, they brought up a secondary array. Something with more power and tighter focus. They swept us again, then again. They were checking their own instruments. I keyed the bridge intercom. Signal from the out. Ardent threshold. To the Sovethian formation. We hold position. We are not maneuvering. We are not transmitting. We are simply here. I paused. Send it on their standard frequency. No encryption. Drav sent it. 11 minutes passed, then 20, then 40. It was Race who told me. Shh. He was watching the tactical display with the focused calm that meant he had seen something and was making sure of it before he spoke. Captain, he said. Radiance of the immutable line is breaking formation. The Radiance was the second ship in the Sovethian hierarchy, the sub-Celebrant's vessel, positioned directly behind the predominance. It wasn't moving toward us. It was moving alongside the predominance, which was itself a deviation from Sovethian protocol that I would later learn was roughly equivalent to a naval officer walking up to the fleet, admiral's chair and sitting in it without being invited. Comms request said from the radiance, not the predominance. I looked at Rias. He looked at me. Put it through, I said. The sub-celebrant's voice was measured. The translation algorithm smoothed it. But I could hear the underlying cadence shift from the formal register of the right to something quieter and more careful. You are the commanding officer of the vessel designated. Ardent threshold. The translation rendered. It was not a question. I am. A pause. We were informed through sources we considered reliable that your kind had not yet commissioned ships of that displacement class. I can't speak to what your sources told you, I said. I can tell you what is in front of your sensors. Another pause, longer this time. In the background of the transmission I could hear, very faintly, distorted by whatever acoustic environment the sub-Celebrant occupied, voices. Multiple voices, urgent. The translator unable to keep up with overlapping speech. Whatever was happening aboard the predominant. It was not a calm deliberation. The voice of the immutable pattern, the sub-Celebrant said, is in consultation with the inner quorum. We can wait, I said. We waited. 6 hours and 14 minutes by the deck clock. I had the crew stand down from action stations to condition 2, sent half of them to get food, made sure there was coffee at the tactical stations. The Ferris and Kale's Crossing held their positions without being asked. The Sovethian formation held its ring. The predominance ran 17 more sensor sweeps. I let them, there was no reason not to. The sweeps confirmed what the sweeps confirmed, and nothing I could say would confirm it more usefully than the ship itself. The treaty proposal arrived at hour 6. It was not a surrender. The Sovethians did not, on principle, surrender. Their theology had no framework for it. What it was, in the language of the conclave, was mutual recognition of territorial weight, which their diplomatic corps explained to ours, meant that both parties acknowledged the other as a power capable of consequence. The system boundary was redrawn. Karath remained a contested claim. The right of obliteration was, without formal announcement, suspended indefinitely. I signed the recognition accord on behalf of the fleet at Su 340 ship time, in the small conference room off the bridge, with Reyes and 2 of my senior officers as witnesses. No ceremony. No opposite number standing across a table from me. The entire exchange was conducted through communication channels. The sub-celebrant, representing the conclave. Because, as nearly as our intelligence could determine, the high celebrant had retired to his private chambers 6 hours earlier and had not emerged. Reyes poured 2 cups of coffee after I signed. He handed me one without saying anything. I drank it looking out the forward ports at the ice world below, Karath, gray-white, cloud-banded, patient as old stone, and at the Sovethian formation still holding its ring in the middle distance. They had come here to perform a ceremony that had ended smaller powers going back 400 years. They had run their sweeps and done their calculations, and arrived at a verdict about what we were. We came here to be seen. That was enough.